Now what?
So you should have three of them, right? YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter.
I need to add Twitter. Jeez, you guys don't tell me diddly. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, Twitter, save, done.
All right. All right, I'm out.
All right.
Stay on standby.
All
Now,
right, thanks.
now my banner means something. See, John Newman is a big dork. See, that's
It is. You're right. You can keep it up there. That's my bad. I earned that. I earned that title tonight. All right, guys, I gotta go.
All right, now apparently we're live on YouTube, and I'm going to kick John off of here because he's not part of this show. I'm Mike Moynihan, baseball collector, Bench Clear Media. We've got John Keating making his Hobby Hotline debut, and of course Corey from YamWax, returning champion to everything. We did such a great intro.
Yeah. That Jada Smith joke was awesome, Mike. The one you told.
Thanks. Yeah.
You'll ever hear it.
I made it. Yeah, and at least I'm not going to get smacked.
Those who are with us on Facebook, I just want to say welcome, Twitter and YouTube. Probably 95% of our viewers. So we're live for real now.
Now we're live.
We paid our bill.
Lee, I get handed the keys to the castle, and I go screwing up the first night. But
we got hacked.
That's all right.
I do want to say, Drake, this is an open hobby hotline. You can pop in and join us live at any time.
He'll be busting packs, but with myself running the show, John Keating here, and Corey, we're going to be talking vintage baseball and just baseball in general because it's baseball season. I mean, we're 9 days away from opening day, 2022 season. Was there any worry by you guys that we weren't going to see this day? Was that ever a concern on your brain?
Nah.
I mean, I thought there was a good chance that it wouldn't happen, especially with it's going into spring training. But I'm not the biggest baseball fan, to be honest.
Okay, I'm surprised they didn't shorten the schedule permanently. Knock it down.
We're gonna remove Corey from the stream. He's not a big. No, I'm just kidding. Corey's been booted from this episode.
Yeah.
I am wearing my Jackie Robinson T-shirt, and I'm pretty excited, honestly. And I was actually on the fence. I don't know that John was like a hard no, and they were of course going to play, and Corey's kind of I think they were. I was more in the middle and concerned. I thought there was enough issues that might not actually happen. So. Here we are 9 days away. What are you most excited about, John, for the 2022 season?
Great question.
I like asking great questions.
Yeah. I'm gonna come clean here, and I've said it before, not on this channel, but the modern game I'm just not in tune with. I like the old days for some reason. I like the old ways and the old days. So baseball doesn't matter to me. I'm going to be truthful when I say that.
Like current baseball doesn't.
Yeah,
matter.
Current baseball. Yeah. What I'm looking forward to is Villanova this weekend. But other than that, baseball. Yeah.
All right.
Well,
story.
I'll throw it out there. It's again, I'm not the biggest baseball fan, but going to a baseball game is fantastic. To be out there in the crowd on a beautiful day, especially an outdoor stadium, it's such a good time. And and to get the snacks and to be with the kids and to see the excitement when a home run goes over your head in outfield or whatever it is, right? Fly balls. And I'm also looking forward to seeing, how Fanatics shows up this year at baseball stadiums. Yeah, I understand they already had some cards, but I'll be looking for them specifically this year.
Interesting. So, I don't know. I'm looking forward to, it's always this fresh start, right? This idea of everybody's 0-0, and the truth is, there's 10 or 12 teams that probably really only have a shot to win the World Series, half the league. That was part of the reason they wanted to lock the players out. They wanted to create more competitive balance. And I don't know that it's so hard in baseball versus the other sports. You don't have a salary cap. You don't have issues that make parity more likely in football and basketball and some things like that. I'd love, as we're talking, guys, anybody out there just watching, commenting, comment what you're looking most forward to in baseball. I'm looking forward, hearing that Albert Pujols, unretired, essentially pulled a Tom Brady, right, and is going to be coming back to the St. Louis Cardinals. How'd you like to be the guy that caught Albert Pujols' last home run? You might be sitting in the same boat, going, "Oh, that used to be worth something."
What's interesting is you said you mentioned the salary cap, right? And along with the salary cap comes the salary floor, right? And in the NFL, you have to spend X amount of money, right? And in baseball, you don't, which I think that's the biggest problem. Is you can have a team spend $220 million and another one spend $35 million on salary. So, I know they go hand in hand, and one benefits the owners and one benefits the players. But I think that's something that's often forgotten about is the salary floor in baseball.
Okay, I get that. We got some people joining in. We got Caesar, Mr. Pepino Man from California. What's up, man? We got Chris Harris. How you doing? We got Frank, Baseball Hall of Fame autographs. It's sad that I know all these people's real names. I don't know what does that say about me. Chad, which guess what his first name is.
That his real name?
Yeah, some people, it's an alias. We got Logan on here, another guy. We got Ziggy. Mike is here. Ziggy No. Sports Card Detour. Love his name.
That's Diego. That's the Villanova fan with me right there.
There you go. I got to catch up with these comments here. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. Yeah, the doldrums of a season, it goes on for so long. The beginning's just the best part, right? And then you kind of get into May and June and July, the dog days of summer, as they say. But let's go back to Albert Pujols for a second, because I think Pujols is one of those generational talents. He was so good, and he was right after the steroid, right? I mean, he had the end of Bond's career. He had Pujols starting out, and kind of the end of that era. Pujols, we really think, did it clean, right? I would guess. I never made him pee in a cup, so I don't know for sure. But I would guess Pujols played his career pretty clean. And I mean, he early in his career, he was an absolute beast. I mean, I went to a World Series game 2011, Rangers Cardinals. He hit 3 home runs in a game. He hit one still that's in orbit. They're tracking it. NASA's tracking that. It still hasn't landed. And I'm telling you, to get to watch him play, and even now in his, relatively degraded state, he's still pretty fun to watch. I mean, just to say you saw Albert Pujols, if we can show our kids, hey, this guy started when my son was born, it's like, good grief, my son's about to graduate college. So that's kind of crazy that his career has spanned my son's life. 3 MVPs, Rookie of the Year. I think, what would you guys say? I have a thought on this. I'll throw it in a second, but why would a guy like Pujols come back? What does he have to prove?
Warm, comfortable bed, right? St. Louis is a great baseball town. And what better way to go out than where you started and where you were. I don't know what the St. Louis fans thought about him leaving. I don't know whether there was any animosity, but it's a great town, and why wouldn't you want to go back?
Yeah, and bringing it back, and that story to be, to be an ambassador and to feel a good story along with it in your hometown, seems like it. But he's 42 at this point, so I just wonder, what is he going to contribute this year? If he has a great year, it'll be super fun for all the fans.
How close is he to any of the records like RBIs or
he's at
bases?
679. 679 homers, so he's 21 away, which would be, I think, if he hits 21 home runs this year, that would be a mega success for the Cardinals.
Right.
He does have he does hold the lifetime major league record for grounding into double plays, so he'll be adding to that record this year, no doubt. But
he's 147 RBIs away from Hank, so that's not happening.
Yeah, that's not happening. He's, a 297 batting average. He's not going to try to, if he wants to raise that to 300, that ain't going to happen. But, a swan song again, I guess again. I think when he went back when he was with LA and he went back to St. Louis for the last time, he got a really warm reception. And John, he was kind of vilified when he first went to the Angels after St. Louis. He was seen as a money grab, just going for the money, but the reality is that kind of goes away over time.
Mm-hmm.
And what he did in St. Louis, winning them, he won, I think, a couple of rings there at least. One ring, actually, 2006. He won. No, I'm sorry, and 11. So 2. Yeah, because he beat my Rangers. Dang it. 2 rings. He's done a lot for St. Louis. I just think it's cool to see. You don't want to see a guy hang on too long and almost embarrass themselves almost or tarnish their legacy. But I don't know that can. He's still Albert Pujols. I'd go back to 1935 and watch Ruth play with the Braves, right? I mean,
yeah, right.
I'd do that. He was a shell of himself at that time, but hey, it's Babe freaking Ruth, right? So,
yep.
Mike, maybe you can provide some information on this, but let's bring it to the hobby. So, when you think of these guys who've been in a league for a long time through multiple iterations of different card products and stuff, as collectors, it's really fun because you can collect throughout their span. And when they're still current, as change happens, you can get new products. What would you think of some of the interesting Pujols cards of different eras or different, even his cards, but the releases that came out?
Well, it's cool. He and Ichiro came into the hobby together, into the league together. So they're always paired. Their rookie cards are always thought of kind of in tandem, right? You've got 2001 Topps, of course, the great 2001 top set. So hard to grade because of the green borders. So it's just one of those cool looking cards. They've got the chrome cards that year. They've got the retrofractors, which was actually, I think John can correct me, I think that's the only year they did retrofractors was 2001. Yeah. And so they had a shiny front and an old school back, and that's kind of what the cards were. So that's kind of unique. He's got some of the greatest, like the 2001 SP Authentic cards, numbered rookies. That was kind of the first year of numbered rookies. And it was mainly for Ichiro, not for Pujols. Ichiro, they knew he was coming. And so there were tons of products with these rookies with Ichiro in mind. And, oh, by the way, there's this guy named Albert Pujols who turned out to be, who he is.
There's a retrofractor with Ichiro and Pujols on it.
There's a rookie card.
Massive, yeah.
Pretty good money. And his stuff has gone up a lot in value over the last 2, like everything else, but even more so, his rookie card has gotten much better. We've got, this is a great question. How old do you think Albert Pujols actually is? That's from Michael Ham. 73. I think he's probably he runs like a 73-year-old for sure.
Now let me ask you a question. He had 10 great years in St. Louis. If he had stayed there, would he have been the best Cardinal of all time? Would he be?
No, Stan Musial. Come on.
Well, I know. Look at those numbers, though. I hear what you're saying, but look at those numbers, though. Those first 10, 11 years were amazing.
Yeah, we think of Pujols as a power hitter. He's got 3,300 hits.
Yep.
That's a lot.
He hit 359. He hit 357. Right? He put the ball in play.
Yeah, and he walks a lot. I mean, his on-base percentage was insane a few years, well over 400. 500. Slugging percentages over 600 a lot. He actually didn't walk a lot, honestly. Now that I'm looking at his stats right now on Baseball Reference.
Didn't strike out much either for a guy with that power, right?
In fact, he never struck out over 100 times in his career. The most he ever had was his rookie season, 93 strikeouts. That's pretty impressive, actually.
Right. Even
in the latter years that he wasn't as great, he still made contact. That's a great point. It's a great all-around hitter.
Yep.
He actually won a Gold Glove too, 2 Gold Gloves, believe it or not, at first base. But he hasn't been the Albert Pujols. He didn't make but one All-Star team with the Angels, so he already was kind of declining, but he might be 73 years old. But I don't want to spend our whole show talking about Albert Pujols, but what do you think about, and I know, John, you're not a huge, fan of today's game. If I had my money on a current player, it's Juan Soto. If I said, okay, who's your guy? If you wanted to, pick up cards of certain guys, it's Juan Soto. Am I crazy, or what do you guys think?
Well, John did a great episode, I think, this week on that, right? He was talking about all the young guns, and he brought up some great points. Tatis can't stay healthy. Soto seems to be the guy, right? But got to see how Acuna bounces back as well. And those boys up north of the border, are going to be all right, I think. Bochette and Vlad Jr. So it's exciting. Yeah. There's a lot of exciting young players, right?
Yeah.
Nobody talks about pitchers anymore, though, right?
No. Why would you?
Right.
Yeah.
They're all getting Tommy John surgery.
Vlad Jr., that's the guy for me. I don't really collect baseball cards at all, but there's just so much excitement, and he hasn't quite had that, insane injury bug yet, and so much momentum going to the end of last year. See what he can do. All these guys are so young in their career, so it's going to be fun to see how the next decade goes.
For sure. I don't know if you guys saw the Vlad Jr. I think he posted it somewhere. It's sad when I go to Google Vladimir Guerrero Jr., it thinks I want to type Vladimir Putin, which I do not.
I just wonder if these guys, the numbers, I think the numbers will never be the same just because of, the so-called quote maintenance days and stuff like that. Are we talking about 140 game a year players now, right? I mean, I think that's going to affect stats. I don't, people we're talking about the strike taking, milestones away from people, but I think just the way the game's going to be from now on, it's 140 games and you're considered
a full season.
A full season, yeah.
So what does that do then to you? I don't think that affects their hobby too much, honestly.
No, the hobby, no, because the hype is instantaneous. You don't build on your price is not according to your resume anymore. It precedes your resume. Is
that different in baseball, you think, than like basketball? It is. It's all about, what have you done for me lately? A player gets on a hot streak in basketball and their cards shoot up. And
right.
I think that can happen a little in baseball, but the truth is it's not. I think you're right, John. I don't think it's the same. I mean, Vladdy Jr. was priced as a all-time Inner Circle Hall of Famer before he ever stepped on a Major League Baseball diamond. So to me, I hate that about the hobby, actually. I don't like that at all. It doesn't make any sense to me.
You used to have to wait in the 90s, wait a month to see whether your card value went up from the month before to Don Mattingly, right?
And it's probably changed the way people prospect. I mean, you got to start prospecting early. I mean, look at what Bobby Witt Jr. cards are doing. He still hasn't played a major league game, you know, and you're like, wait a second, let's see what these guys do first. And
what are we waiting for in basketball right now? We're waiting for Bronny, right? Everybody's waiting for Bronny, and the guy hasn't even cashed well, I'm sure he's cashed some paychecks, but not.
I think we're basically waiting for Bronny to see where LeBron is going to go in his latter years. Where Bronny goes. Bronny's not projected to be a top 10 player in his class at the moment. So,
right. Well, the hype, though, right? The hype is there.
The hype is there because wherever he goes, LeBron supposedly is going to follow him.
Right.
That'll be a lot of buzz at the draft when you're basically not only drafting Bronny but LeBron as well for a couple of years.
This is from Caesar. He says the lack of games played doesn't affect today's hobby because that's what new hobbyists are used to. I guess, yeah. I mean, that's kind of the norm, right? So many guys.
I think an interesting phenomenon with the prospecting is that when there's so much buzz around a player before they ever play, and maybe people prospect on them for a couple of years, and then they're pretty good, but they never quite live up to the hype, it takes a long time for their value to plummet. Everybody's kind of waiting for them to make that next leap. But even someone like Zion, who was so heavily invested in, he would never be at the values he's at now if it wasn't for that early run-up because he just hasn't performed on the court. But he hasn't crashed. He hasn't crashed yet because there's still that belief have paid so much money to buy in that they're holding on for a long time. Where if someone suddenly bursts in training camp, and then spikes, they can crash immediately. So, the buy-in really affects what people are willing to cash out at.
Well, there's some psychology to that, Corey, and I think you're onto something there. You don't want to admit you were wrong, right? It's very difficult for just human beings to say, "Yep, missed on that guy,"
Right.
and then you'll have an example of like Shohei, who looked like, yeah, this guy's never going to be who everybody thinks he's going to be because he's never going to be healthy enough to put it all together. Now, granted, he's had one really good season, MVP season. Like, I'm not Ruthian, no doubt. Like, seriously, great season last year for Shohei Ohtani. Can he do that repeatedly? And I mean, John and I have been doing the baseball thing for so long. I mean, I can tell you for every Albert Pujols, there's 100 other guys that were equally high expectations that ended up bagging groceries.
You saw them all go through the Texas Rangers in the 90s, too.
We did.
All those guys, every one of them, right?
Right. So it's just, I mean, I think, Corey, you're right. People don't want to admit they're wrong, so they hold on. They don't want to have a Shohei effect where they sold too early because he was one season away from breaking out or doing whatever. And then there's just I think collectors get put away. Those cards go up, and they don't try to get rid of them necessarily. It's just, well, there's a good lesson learned. Thank you, Brian Taylor.
They're in the vault. Yeah, Brian Taylor. Wow.
Anybody knows who Brian Taylor? If anybody out there other than me and John know who
Brian with an E. Yep.
Right. So it's interesting. We'll see. The season's going to get started. I'm excited about that. We'll kind of see how things go. I want to spend some time today. Somebody was asking about the Mint Collective. I think it was Logan. I think he said, "Hey, what did any thoughts on the Mint Collective show?" None of the three of us went. I don't think. It was in Las Vegas last week. To me, everything I saw about it looked like a traditional industry trade show, right? You had a lot of corporate presence, a lot of that, and some cards and stuff. I saw some kind of walkthroughs of the show floor on people's videos. I mean, I guess if somebody flew me there for free and gave me a ticket, I would certainly go, but it wasn't something I was chomping at the bit to go to. Did you guys watch anything about it? Any thoughts about it?
Go ahead, Corey.
Yeah. Well, I think I did the same as you, Mike, because I watched from afar, and I did have FOMO while I was tuning in. And some great hobbyists that I've met were there, but it did seem like a social event as much more than a trading card event, and also a business event too. I've heard from countless people about how many business deals were proposed or happening while they were there, because everybody was there. It was an industry summit type of event. And I think some of the legacy of this event are the stories we'll hear in 2, 3, 6 months about people saying, "Hey, we hatched this at the Mint Collective, and now we've come up with this partnership or expansion." And we'll see some neat things come out of it. But it made a splash. There were some big names there, and it was fun to watch from afar.
So you wish you would have gone? Honestly?
I do. Yeah, I wish, because there's a lot of people who I enjoy just their company. And that's what the hobby's about a lot for me, is not only the collecting and the chasing down the rare items, but connecting with other hobbyists and talking about our war stories and pursuits. And so it did seem like a fun crew to be with. You could find a crowd that you'd enjoy.
John, did you watch anything about it, or?
No, and I had discussions. Actually, Dr. Jim and I talked about this for a while at one point. My concerns are the commercialization of our hobby from outsiders, right? Because when I see the name IMG, it scares me, right? It reminds me of Live Nation or all those big conglomerates that don't have our best interest in mind. They're just seeing the money, and they want a piece of that money. And we could very easily, we don't need to give any of our money up to outside entities, in my opinion. Everything we need to do in this hobby, the money can stay in this hobby. The National is a great example, Industry Summit, so on. So I understand what they're trying to do, but it concerns me when, UFC is involved and IMG and MGM and all that stuff. I think it's
Too commercialized, then
too
maybe.
commercialized, and I'd prefer that the money. I love that there's a lot of money flowing into the hobby. I don't want to see any of it flowing out of the hobby. I like to see the money circulating within the hobby. I'd love for a promoter to step up, and if they held that, like your boy down in Dallas held something like this, that'd be great, because I know it's a hobbyist putting on that show. But IMG, that you wonder why your concert tickets cost you $140 for the nosebleed seats. This is the reason, So
Yeah, there were there. I was just going to say that there were some of what I'd like to see on this side of the event would be to get to watch some of the presentations. I hope that they make some of ththose public and live, because there were some great panels put together. Christina from Card Ladder, who is a great hobbyist and part of that crew. She was in charge of organizing many of those conversations and pulled together people like Gene from Aranus Design and Carvin Chung and Josh Luber, and to hear those conversations between those folks would be welcome content. But the thing is now, with live shows and YouTube channels and everything, we have these discussions all the time too. So you wonder if they pulled out anything extra for that event, and I would consume that content.
I didn't hear any breaking stories or anything coming out of it that really resonated with me. Anybody else hear anything big news wise other than the story about the Jordan card sale that I just put up?
I think you get a bunch of hobbyists together and people in the industry. They love the network, and I think that's great, right? I don't think you can get that many people together and not consider it a success, because anytime you get that many hobbyists together, it's a good thing, right? Everybody seemed to enjoy it. So exchange of information is great. I just, you saw that initial price tag to attend, and it was just, it was outrageous. It was unreal, right? I'd rather spend $999 on a baseball card, or 12, right?
Right. I thought the Mint Collective was a faction of the board, says Logan. That's fantastic. Star Trek reference, by the way, for those non-nerds like myself out there.
Yeah, no breaking news either, but it is a different approach to have a big Las Vegas club, and that's kind of the world I come from, being in tech. There's these big events happen all the time, but they do have diminishing value. It's very social and not always about the actual transactions that we enjoy doing. So,
I went to the industry summit last year, whenever that was last year, September last year, I guess.
Yep.
And I didn't go to the summit part. I went to the show part before the summit. But, a lot of the people that were there for the summit, I interacted with and talked to. And that feels like a more, as John was saying, a little more hobby-centric, like more hobbyist-centric event. That's probably the better way to put it.
And it's more organic too, right? It doesn't seem staged. Even
for sure. For sure. Well, go ahead, Corey. Finish.
Oh, I was just going to say, so just speaking of big names, and speaking of of things happening in the hobby, there is Drake coming in the hobby, and that also goes to the hype, right? Like I think there's been a lot of questions around. You have the rapper Drake in the hobby chasing the triple the logo men in general, opening packs with Ken, and is this going to be where he flies in, realizes he spent just a ton of money and have a bad experience, and then gets out? Is he going to ride that crazy up and down hype train? Or him and his followers going to be interested?
That's the only Drakes you need to know about right there, Corey.
Right.
81 Drake's baseball set, okay?
I used to think getting the Drake's cards was so cool, John, when I was a kid, because it was different.
For sure.
But back to Drake.
Yeah.
I could care less if Drake is in the hobby or not, honestly. I mean, all these celebrities that are in and out so fast, it feels like, to me, they're just blips on the radar, really.
I mean,
The
it's a
difference
great
with Drake
tie-in
is he's a
with
huge,
basketball. Yeah, with basketball, right? He's a fan. So,
yeah.
but
So he does seem to like the sport. Obviously, he's in the background of a number of cards, Toronto cards, because he's at so many games, sitting courtside and gets in on the broadcast and everything. So he really does like the sport. It'll be curious to see if he truly enjoys collecting. These are some of the Drake Bieber cards. I bought tons of those when they were a couple bucks each. I think I gave away 20 of them at the National. Um, and they're just sort of hilarious. I enjoy the culture cards and collecting all kinds of stuff like that.
But you get a guy like Drake who literally, let's say, has pretty much an unlimited budget, right? It's not relatable for us. It's not relatable for your average hobbyist because we go, I can't play in that world. Well, yeah, cool for you. It's like when Phil Hughes was, doing, which by the way, where did he go in the YouTube world? Like he doesn't make videos anymore, but he was opening boxes and cases of things I could never open. And it's kind of cool to watch for a little while. And then the novelty wears off a little bit and you're like, okay, let me go talk to somebody that isn't, not that I don't know Phil Hughes, so I'm not trying to talk about him personally, or he was a major league player, right? So he loves the game, obviously, but it felt very money-ish. And why isn't he, it's like he came in, he built a huge YouTube following and now kind of has disappeared for whatever reason. I don't know. I just think they come and go and it doesn't matter. Won't affect my hobby one way or another.
Right.
And maybe it allows us to dismiss, that constant conversation I see in chat rooms and stuff like just wait until so and so enters the hobby, then we're gonna explode, right? It's like, guys, the hobby is the hobby. We collect, find cards you like, hold on to the great ones, and in the end, it doesn't really matter who joins the hobby. It's all about us and the collectors.
And those are the mainstays, right? Those are the things that last. John, how long have you been collecting?
Since 1974.
1981 for me.
Yeah,
and I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
How long, Corey?
84.
Yeah. So all of us are 30 to 40 years doing this. Come on. It's cool. I guess you like the hobby to get some attention. It's kind of fun. It makes cards that I want to buy more expensive, but whatever. But really, it's at least then when you talk about it at work, they're not going to think you're a total dork and loser, right? I collect, pictures of men on cardboard, and they're less likely. It makes it cool again, I guess. But hey, I want to talk about the National. We don't have a whole lot of time left, and this is one of my favorite topics of the year. We're getting, I think John Newman told me earlier, 119 days away from the National starting. He's got a countdown on his phone, which is fantastic. So. It's close. It's really shocking. It's like, whoa, we're going to be there before we know it. Either you guys going this year?
It's a home game for me.
Okay. Yeah.
So. I can't imagine missing it. It was such a great time last year.
How many have you been to, Corey?
That was my first, so this will be my second.
Okay. John?
My last National was 1991 in Anaheim.
Wow.
Yeah, I there was a little peer pressure from the good doctor to go this year, but by the time the National happened, I had already been in Chicago, I think 4 times in July, and I wasn't going back. So I'm an outlier anyway. But I've been to a couple. I think I went to one in Atlantic City in the '80s, but I'm looking forward to it. I can't commit to a day or days yet because my work schedule is always in flux, but I'm looking forward to it.
That is impressive that you're. Last National was 1991. I think that was the last Anaheim year.
I don't know about that, but that was the big one. That was the one where I went with my wife. We were living in Redondo Beach, California at the time, and I bought a 1976 top set there, I think, for $275.
Amazing that we can remember things like that from 30 years ago. My first National was the 1990 National in Arlington, which was a home game for me back then.
Right.
And I don't know, this will be my 6th or 7th National, I guess, to go to. And I'm excited like every year to go. I've never been to one in AC.
It's a dump.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
That's kind of the consensus. I've never even been to the city, so I have no
Yeah. I've lived there a couple
judgment.
times actually. I've lived there a couple times in Brigantine, the next island up. But I imagine everybody is staying in Ventnor or Margate or something like that. Nobody's actually, unless you're staying in one of the casinos. You guys are getting a house. I'm sure it's in Ventnor, I guess, Mike.
No, it's literally 4 blocks from the convention center.
Interesting. Does it have a roof?
Do I need to bring my firearms to protect myself?
Bring
No.
Norman with you. You're going to need Norman.
Yeah, he's over here hanging out, just chilling right now.
No, I mean it's amazing. They've pumped millions and millions of dollars into that town from casino money, and it's still Atlantic City. So anyway, I don't mean to be a downer. It's going to be awesome inside. Looking forward to it.
Frank is correcting me. The 96 was the last national in Anaheim. Do y'all like the idea of rotating cities for the
Listen,
national?
I've been to. This is a bit of a stretch, but I've been to every convention center in the country. There's no reason why they can't have it in. What is it? The Kay Bailey Hutchinson. There's no reason they can't have it in St. Louis. There's no reason they can't have it in Atlanta. They have reasons for their rotation, and I'm sure a lot of it has to do with sweetheart deals with the buildings and/or some of the labor unions. So I understand that part, but to say that we don't understand why it has to be in specific cities. I mean, Chicago, they have it. It's not even the biggest convention center in the city. McCormick Place is the biggest convention center in the country, which is downtown Chicago. So it can be, they could broaden their horizons, but obviously I guess they've done their market research and they've dialed it in the way they've dialed it in.
Yeah. And I hear the reasons that they keep it on the East Coast because of just the density of dealers that are on the East Coast as well. Right. So, but New Orleans, that'd be another fun location. Great convention center.
Yeah. No, that's a massive convention center. But all the cards would get stuck together from the humidity.
That's true.
So the cards would brick up.
But don't you think that that's kind of and I'm just going to play devil's advocate for this because I've heard I've interviewed Ray Schulte from the National and talked to him about why, and I call it all lame. I'm like, lame. I mean, I don't say that to him.
Right.
I don't, they don't hold a lot of water. The arguments they make,
right,
which to them might be incredibly valid, don't hold any water to me because I'm sitting there going, look at what our hobby's done in the last 3, 4, even 5 years, not just the last 2 years really, but we've been growing for a while. It just, supernova explosion in 2020, but now you got dealers all over the country, and it's this new wave of people that aren't East Coast centric necessarily. Does that hold water anymore? I mean, I just go, no. Really, guys? I mean,
it's convenient. The reasons they state are convenient, but they're not necessarily, as you say, they don't hold water.
Well, and look, I like Ray. I have no issues with anybody at the National, but I wish they would be a little more open-minded to expanding, because if you think about part of the joy of going to the National is experiencing a new city or going to a ball game, because it's always in the middle of the summer. You can go to a different park. If they did San Francisco or they did Atlanta or
St. Louis would be great, and I'll tell you why. Because they have a big enough convention center, but what they have is a big old empty, Edward Jones Dome, which you could put card tables. I've been on that floor where when they pull the carpet up and it's just concrete underneath there. Imagine having tables in the middle of the stadium where the greatest show on turf was. You can easily do that. It's attached through a roll-up door to the main floor of the convention center. So there's a lot of options there. It's just they have to get out of their comfort zone. And how many people travel to the National now? A ton, right? Nobody's waiting for it to come around to their city. They're going to it. So I think some of the old excuses are no longer valid. There's a waiting list for dealers, I guess, right? From what I hear. And anyway, we need to maybe we could speak with a little louder to these folks to get them to do that, because Atlantic City isn't the option, or isn't answer if you ask me.
And while we don't think that the Mint Collective, was the hobbyist event that we'd hoped something could be, it is inspiring to see new events pop up, whether it's them or another event that's going to succeed and maybe push the national, to have to think about not even the innovative ideas at the event, but just exploring new cities and new areas, because these other events will do that.
Right.
Well, the Dallas Card Show is no joke.
I think it's outgrown that place. I was there in the fall. I think it's outgrown that place.
Yeah, I mean,
a
they're
big building,
using
too. Yeah.
every room that they can to put a
Right.
card to put dealer tables. I bet it's pretty close to number of dealers, not necessarily amount of space, because you have so much more corporate space at the National. Then Dallas has zero corporate presence, which actually makes it the perfect hobbyist event. There's
Right.
nobody out there pushing product or services or all that kind of stuff. Really, it's just dealers selling cards. So, I mean, to me, Dallas Fort Worth is a huge missed opportunity. I mean, it's kind of the mecca of the hobby, right? You got Panini's here and Beckett's here, and
Sure.
some big auction houses are here. They print 90% of the sports cards are printed, in Dallas Fort Worth. So
I agree. Yeah, I
I
agree.
don't get it. And we got huge convention centers, plenty of hotel room. They always
Yep.
saying, "Oh, can we get hotel room? Give me a break."
Yeah.
You can get that anywhere.
Yep, I agree.
But any other thoughts? I'm sorry.
I don't know. I saw the warnings in the chat about starting to look. We should start to look for hotel rooms if you haven't rented a house or you're looking to stay near the event, because some of the rates I'm seeing, it looks like they're getting up there. So I've got to dive into that myself.
I got my rented a house, an Airbnb, a week after last year's National.
Smart.
What is it about and I do agree, even though I've been to Dallas a bunch and I'd still, if I had to choose, I'm going to the National versus Dallas. Luckily I don't have to choose, but if I did, I would, because it's such a unique experience. And it's hard to put it into words, but I'd invite one of you two guys to try to put it into words. What makes the National so special? John, it'd be hard for you. It's been, 30 years, but
I mean, it's once a year, right? You can do the Dallas Card Show 6 times a year, and you're going to have people flying in. Like I said, I was there in September. I got to, have dinner with Dr. Jim and Rich and James, Elite Hunters, and Victor. But this is going to be everybody, right? It's not going to be groups of people. It's going to be a whole group. And it's the cards are the same. The cards are almost secondary, right? Even though, because you see that you go to Dallas and you see all the cards. You go to Philly show and you see all the cards. But this is the people, right?
I think so. And I think it's the people, but then it's the anticipation, because you don't quite know what's going to happen. You don't know there can be big announcements at the National. You don't know what stops some of the big sponsors are going to pull out. So there's the corporate side, but they do some neat stuff, which individuals are going to be there from the hobby, from, surprises,
Right.
people you're going to randomly run into in the aisles that you didn't know were coming. So there's a lot to look forward to, and it is once a year. It's only once a year, so everybody goes.
Everybody's got their cameras and their content team, right, and their Pelicans.
Yeah, it was lighter than I thought last year. There actually wasn't as much of it as you'd think, but they were there, including our friend Logan.
I'm in the event business, and I would love to see the National up its game. I'm not talking about to emulate the Mint Collective, but there's so much that could be done. There's so much that could be done from to bring it up to modern times, make it more user friendly for the attendees and stuff like that. It could be a lot more fun.
There's a good side to, boy, it's so huge I got lost. There's also a downside to that where, some better organization would make a lot of sense. So you could find out which sections were for what type of sports, how to navigate your way through that place and find out where you actually are. Because there are things you want to go back and see. The
NC-17 break room where people can wear whatever they want.
Right.
And the rest of us can avoid it, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So, Corey, with last year being your first, I love hearing perspectives of people that go for the first time, because I can't go back and go again for the first time. And so to hear people, what they thought, what their expectations were, was it met, exceeded, in line with? what would you say your kind of overall feeling was?
I mean, I think I had pretty big expectations. The hobby was had been really peaking for the last year and a half leading up to it, and it's still slightly exceeded it. But what really like blew me away was the moment that I walked in. Um, Actually, when I walked in, so I walked in with Jeremy Lee, our friend and fellow host, and he kept me busy chatting the whole time, and then he stopped me right in the middle of the place and said, "Now stop and look in all directions." And it was at a point where you could see down all the different corridors, and it was just it almost takes your breath away because there's hundreds and hundreds of booths and sponsor places and cards forever and every type of card you could imagine, seeing just amazing things, the cards I hadn't seen before, but running into friends I'd only known through Instagram. That was really overwhelming as well, to like see Instagram sort of come to life. So in many ways it was overwhelming. I think I slept like 9 hours across 3 nights, and just had a great time.
Any first year, if there's any guys on here that watch or are watching currently that are thinking about going to the show for the first time, any kind of first timer tips?
I could tell you you have to bring 3 pairs of sneakers with you, okay? Because you change shoes every day or every half day. I mean, I can tell you right there.
Yeah, I actually picked up insoles for walking and changed those across a couple pairs of shoes. I probably next year I'd buy 2 pairs of insoles and 3 pairs of shoes for sure.
So, Corey, did you find a card or cards that you wouldn't have found anywhere else, or was it just
found a lot of cards that I couldn't afford that I wouldn't have necessarily found other places? A matching pair of PMG green Duncan, a PMG green and a PMG red Duncan.
Right.
It's neat to see. An exquisite of 99 LeBron was there. PSA 9 Mikan. And then a lot of stuff that was meant just to be looked at, like the Honus and we're behind heavy glass. So that stuff was like museum worthy to me. And it was neat to see some of the memorabilia things too, sports and non-sport, like signed Jackie Robinson, signed Neil Armstrong. Those types of just, 8.5 by 11 photos were really neat to see too.
I would think the Hall of Fame should be there, have a presence, right? They're sitting on acres of memorabilia. Why not have a booth there?
A little traveling show. That's a great idea.
Great point, for sure.
John, I'm going to answer that question. And the way I would answer it is a collector looking for cards to add to their collection by going to this. And look, number one, hanging out with my buddies. Like that is, if that was all it was and there weren't any cards and it was a reason to get together for the family reunion, great. But since I am there to buy cards and want to find good deals, what's great about the National is if you go to Dallas or another show and you're looking for, let's say I was last year looking for a 53 Bowman mantle, right? Mm-hmm. Not a common card, but not an uncommon card for sure. At Dallas, there might be 2 of them in the room. At the National, there's 50.
Right. Great point.
And so you can be very selective. You can, and I'm going to use this in the nicest way I can. You can pit dealers against each other. Hey, so-and-so has it right down there for 1,200 or whatever number, and I'll give you 1,000 right now cash or whatever, right? And so I was able to do that with that card, and I can pass over a lot. I can be very picky, I guess is the right word. I did it with my Hank Aaron rookie I bought in 18. I must have looked at 100 when I bought one, which is why I think it's the best day to go as a collector, in my opinion, is on Wednesday to the sneak peek night.
So say you're 23 years old, Mike, and you're living in Omaha, Nebraska, and you go out on a Friday night, and you go to a bar, and there's like 2 hot chicks there. Do you say, man, there's 60 hot chicks in the bars in Vegas, so I'm just going to pass? No, you love the one you're with. So you might buy that 53 Bowman at the Dallas show because you only have the reference is only 2 cards, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's a lot more variety at the National, but if you're anything like me, man, you'll buy, I'll buy it in Indianapolis if I can't.
That's a great point, John. But to take your analogy to the next level is if you knew you were going to Vegas in a week and a half,
I got you.
Right? You see what I mean? Like, hey, I know there's 2 hot girls here, but
Right.
I'm going to be able to have my pick of the litter.
Yeah.
And are we turning this into an NC-17 show?
Yeah, I think we did. Anyway, let's
Um,
get back to the topic here. Chris Harris is
Well,
spot on. White House Sub Shop is the place to go. So you guys, he's spot on, and it's all about the water, as we say, in the bread.
I'll say this about the National as far as like what you collect. Let's say that if you collect ultra modern, you need to go to the impromptu trade nights that happen, and you'll find out about them from social media, like where they're happening. It's usually at the lobby of one of the nearby hotels, and there are hundreds of people who make me feel old as heck because they're all 18 and 15-year-old,
Right.
25-year-old guys with $1 million collections, flipping open their cases.
Red
I
Bulls.
walked through the lobby. Someone just said, "Hey, check out my Kobe cards." I'm like, I'm holding $1 million worth of Kobe cards at a minimum right here. They just handed me. This is insane. And people are doing big deals in those hotel lobbies.
Caesar is telling the truth here. He did hold my Willie at the National a few years ago. And Kevbo Jones, Hot Chicks and Slabs, sounds like a podcast concept. Man, not for me, but that would be bad. Oh God, we're not even going there tonight. We're not going to go there. But
Family friendly.
Corey, what you said about the trade nights is I think Chicago was they've had, Ryan Card Collector 2 has run a formalized trade night once during the show. They were at not just some hotel lobbies in Chicago. They were in every hotel lobby every night. It was absolutely bonkers to watch that part of the hobby that I've never seen before. That was new to me. Like, oh my goodness, this is crazy.
There's
and
only
cool.
There's only one hotel in Atlantic City that you're going to get away with that, and it's the one attached to the convention center. Other than that, there's no hotel cluster. It's all on the boardwalk. So, yeah, that'll be interesting to see what happens there. Kind of like Dallas, the Dallas card show at night. That the hallways are packed out there, and I imagine that's what I think it's the Sheraton maybe attached to the convention center. Actually, that's what that's going to be like. Otherwise, you can't spill out on the street there. Yeah, it's just there's a different element.
How I felt in Chicago? I felt bad for the workers for the hotels because they were completely inundated with people that aren't even guests of the hotel, right? They're just
right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You watch these people walk around, the workers at the hotels. I just felt bad for them. Like, golly, they're having to navigate all of this sea of, basically trespassers, for lack of a better word.
Well, I'm sure Kyle's got a great deal there, right? And it's
not Kyle. I'm talking about in Chicago.
In Chicago, I got you.
Yeah. It's kind of expected in Dallas. Like that's now part of the experience in Dallas.
Yeah.
Well,
you get a lot of people staying. Those hotels are packed with collectors, though, right around in Chicago. I would think. Yeah.
On top of the trading, some of the funnest moments at the National for me were when I ran into a collector that I knew only from online or knew from the past, and we just popped open our cases and just showed each other, like, look at this card that I had graded here at the National. Some of the cards I brought, some of the cards you brought, kind of just showing cards that we're fond of and sharing the experience together. Not even trading anything, but just opening the cases and sharing what we like. Those were some really fun times for sure. I did run into Josh Luber on the floor, and we're both non-sport collectors. So he showed off. He's talked about it since, a Beatles Muhammad Ali card. That's the only PSA 10 in the world of that card. And he found it there at the National. So that's a guy, who found a great card in the non-sport world, one of the best non-sport cards. And he ran into each other and we showed off our non-sport cards, and it was just great times.
I agree. And like John, I'm looking forward to at the National meeting you. There's a lot of first time introductions that happen. No matter how many times you go, you got, I'll call it the old school guys, the guys you just met before and hung out with for years. And then the guys that have been around a while and you just never had a chance to meet. I can think of 10 guys off the top of my head that I've known for 5+ years that this will be their first National, and I'm going to get to meet them for the first time. I mean, I'm super excited about that as much as anything.
I'm an introvert, so this whole thing has been I've collected in a vacuum most of my life, other than my big break. But yeah, that'll be fun. I mean, I'm finally learning how to meet people at the age of 54. So, my mother would be proud if she were around to see it finally.
Yeah, there were people there last year who were there, and we were there for 3 days apiece, and you don't even run into each other. So I have my checklist of folks I want to meet who I didn't meet last year, including yourself, Mike. So
Just find friends that have the same shoe size as you. You guys can swap shoes.
There you go.
Every hour or so.
now we're living it down.
You'll have different worn pressure points from the insole of the shoe, but it is. You mentioned, God, I just went blank on my point about the national, and just it's an experience. If you've never been and you're in this hobby, beg, borrow, steal, you should go at least once.
And you don't need to buy big bangers, right? You can just,
of course not,
soak it all in and work on your 79 tops or something.
Well, there's stuff for everyone of every along the spectrum of the hobby at the national.
What do you think about the signers this year?
Well, they're coming out tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is it mostly baseball centric? Do you think there's going to
typically
be celebs?
That's typical. But they've added tons of football guys in recent years, and hockey. Hockey's usually the least, and basketball's not that. Almost no basketball. Maybe some older,
Right.
older players, but not.
Right.
You would think there'd be more current players because it's after the season.
Right.
They're in the off season.
They don't need, when you're making $40 million a year,
right?
Like,
why would they? Why do they need to go to a show
in Atlantic City?
Right, in Atlantic City.
What about soccer? It'd be nice to see soccer players there. And I'm a big time soccer fan, but European soccer, not this thing they do over here. But it'd still be, why not have Mia Hamm there and Brandy Chastain and folks like that?
100%. Yeah, one of the biggest guests last year was a soccer player. Which one? It was Ronaldinho, I think.
I don't think so. I don't think
it was
one of those guys isn't allowed out of the country. He's under house arrest. But
yeah.
But that's neat. Nice international flavor, because obviously you can't get Formula One folks because they're probably mid-season, but it's fun,
Yeah, I looked it up. It was Ronaldinho last year.
Oh, was it? Okay.
He was at the Golden Booth. Yeah.
Okay.
So, great question. Do you pay up at the national versus a small local show? Not necessarily. Comps are comps, really, to be honest. And
it depends on the day too, I guess, right?
It does, but you really have all the power. If you can walk away, you don't have to buy the card. And by the way, you'll walk 30 yards and there'll be another one, most likely.
Yeah.
And so I think collectors, the one mistake that's common, just because we're human beings, is the FOMO hits us in the moment and we're like, oh my gosh, I got to have this one. And patient, I tell everybody, walk the show once before you buy anything.
Of course. Yep.
And by the way, that'll take you half a day. So to really, at least absorb in some, it's just so big.
Have a plan.
They'll take you half a day.
Do you pay up? Is what I want to say about that.
I'm just saying it'll take you half a day on a slow day, right? Like on the busy days, it's going to take you a whole day. So
yeah, you got to stop and have hey girl time too, right? With everybody. So that's probably what slows everything down. But you got to get into Rain Man mode and just
that's
focus, at some point.
Well, guys, our hour is come to an end, and I have thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I hope everybody out there that is watching is enjoying too. Mike O is a liar. I am not his hero. That is just not true. I know that's not true. Richie Ashburn is his hero. But thank you, everybody, for watching, listening out there. Thank you, Corey. Thank you, John, for coming on here with me, and hoping you guys have a great rest of your Tuesday and rest of your week. Any last thoughts before we go?
You're the best engineer Hobby Hotline has, Mike.
Okay. I don't disagree.
Right.
I'm not going to disagree.
Let the old guys drive the bus.
Hey, Corey, you can't make your own comment. Come on. That's not.
I'm going to leave that as my comment. Thanks, guys. It's been fun.
All right. See you guys.
Right.
Thank you. I got to get to I'm not a good engineer because I'm not ready to do this. See you guys later. Have a good one.